If you see a guy on the street looking real rough and ragged and you can assume that he's homeless, what's your first thought about that guy? And if he's holding a sign begging for money, what's your first thing you're thinking about? What's the first conclusion you're going to come to? Would you give him money? He just asking for a couple bucks. Would you give him money? What's your first thought when it comes to seeing that? And then for me, for the longest time, I would be like, oh, he dug his grave type situation. Like he could do anything he wants to get out of that situation. He's probably just going begging for money for drugs or alcohol or stuff like that. So a lot of the times when I would see stuff like that, I would automatically just assume the worst or the negative about it. And I would, in the past, I would be willing to give money and stuff like that, but I got to the point where I would just want to go get them a couple sandwiches and just assume that they're hungry. They're just wanting something to eat. They just want to whether the money what's going to do for them. So if I could give them something to eat, then they won't get the drugs. Well, now I'm choosing to think a little bit differently. I'm choosing just to assume that when I see that they just need help, and that if I just give them a couple bucks, that they'll do what they're supposed to do with it. Like I want to just start assuming the best, right? Like when I see somebody on the street, I don't want to assume that they did that to themselves. I just want to think that they're on hard times, and like I want to have good thoughts about these things. Like I just want to always assume the best about every situation. And it took a long time for me to turn around how I think about a lot of the things that I see when I'm just perceiving everything around me. So I just, think about it for yourself. What do you think about when you see stuff like that? Because I'm actively choosing to just assume the best of everybody and everybody's intentions and what they're doing, versus just being so negative and constantly wanting to assume the worst, or you see somebody, right, that you maybe don't agree with how they look or who they are, and you want to just assume that something's wrong with them. Why not just assume that they're being who they are and they're living life how they want to live, and be happy for them? Yeah, I think that's another good thought experiment. What's your first thought that comes to your mind, and then just kind of sit with that and think about it, because I just want to believe everybody's a good person ultimately, and that everybody's just trying to do good, and that's the way that I'm going to choose to see the world that I'm in.